Hey, what's up, VC? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel. I wanted to do a quick response to Lee NoiseSpektrum's 1-year contest. Lee, his channel's been a favorite of mine for the last year. I can't believe it's only a year. I thought that you had, I thought that you were on the VC when I first came on about a year and a half ago. So I was actually surprised to see that it had only been a year. But Lee's one of the Canadian metalheads here in the VC. Showed some really cool stuff. A lot of real obscure metal. Just a really good guy. Highly recommend checking out his channel. I'll put the link down below. But let's just kind of jump into it. He asked us some questions and asked to see some stuff, so I'll just kind of jump into it. One of the things he wanted to show was show three of your earliest records. You know, I remember very early some of the stuff that I bought. My first records were stuff that I got from my parents. I want to say my first record was in the late 70s, early 80s. I had one of those little brown Fisher-Price record players. And I remember listening to like a Bob Seger album, like a Tom Petty album, a Kenny Rogers album, just stuff that was my mom's at that time. At that time, my parents had already split up, so I was left listening to what my mom listened to as opposed to some of the cool stuff that my dad was listening to. Creedence Clearwater, I remember listening to stuff like that on that Fisher-Price record player. And then, of course, I'm sure I had like Mouser Size and other crap like that was popular at the time for young kids, you know. I mean, you know, you're talking 5 or 6 years old at this point. But I got into records music as a whole, very early. Music was huge in my family. My dad has played guitar since long before I was born. You know, and I've talked about the music tradition from my grandfather, who was involved in the Louisiana Hayride, which is very similar to Grand Ole Opry, if you're familiar with the honky-tonk days of the 40s and the 50s. So I won't get into all that again, but I grew up around music. I remember the first couple of albums that I bought, they would have been, I remember having Theater of Pain from Motley Crue, was probably one of the first albums that I bought. All of this stuff is long since gone. I have no idea what happened to it. I remember buying the California Raisins Sing Motown. You know, it's all Motown hits. It was Smokey Robinson, Ray Charles, you know, Gladys Knight, you know, but it was all packaged under the California Raisins, if you guys remember what the California Raisins were, and that had to be, you know, maybe 84, 85 when I bought that. Again, all that stuff is long gone. Actually, one of the earliest records I remember buying by myself was Fat Boys. I want to say it was Fat Boys Are Back. And then also Beastie Boys and LL Cool J, I'm Bad. Beastie Boys, License to Ill. I remember buying all of those in about 87-ish. And I know that all of those are in my dad's collection in Florida. Eventually I'll end up grabbing that whole collection. I'm trying to pry it out of his fingers. He hasn't listened to it in probably 20 years, any of those albums, but I've been trying to get that collection. He just won't give it up, you know. But and I do have some records in there, but you know, it's not stuff I would listen to, so it's not that big a deal. But I did run across these. These are actually the first 5 CDs that I bought. There were a couple more that were part of this. It was part of either BMG or Columbia House, you know, get 10 free albums and we'll give you, you know, for a penny, and then you buy 2 more within the next year, which none of us ever did, you know. I still have 5 of those. I don't have them in the CD case. I have them in an old CD book, but these were my first 5 CDs after I got my first CD player. This had to be 91 or 92 when I got these. I actually had a lot more to my collection back then. However, right before I went into the Navy in '96, my mom's garage, which was separated from the house, It was an RV garage in the backyard, caught on fire, and we lost everything that was in there, including most of my stuff, all my clothes. I'll show a picture at the end. That's the only picture I have from that era. Everything else was lost in the fire. Most of my music collection. These 5 were in my car. That's the only reason I still have them. But and I've shown the first 2. The first 2 are Stone Free, which is a tribute to Jimi Hendrix's killer album. And I believe this was just it was either just released or it's about to be released on vinyl for the first time, which is very cool. I'll definitely be looking for that. Legend from Bob Marley. And then 3 of my all-time favorites. Killing Is My Business from Megadeth. Persistence in Time from Anthrax. A definite favorite right here. And then Among the Living from Anthrax. So that's 5 of the first 10 CDs that I bought back in 91 or 92. Let's see. How do you see yourself as a collector in 5 years? I don't see a big difference. If you go back, that was my, in 91, 92, that was my real introduction to collecting. From that point on, anytime I had any extra money, I was buying cassettes or CDs. And back then it was just about availability. If they had it on CD, I would buy the CD. If not, I would buy the cassette. You know, you could still buy both in most stores at that point. CDs were really still just getting big at that point, you know. And I bought most of my CDs at that time from the Warehouse, which was a music, I don't know if it was everywhere, but it was a big warehouse chain in Phoenix. So I was buying a lot of my music there. And that went on through the early 2000s. I mean, I DJ'd for a number of years in there as a on vinyl. So I did have a pretty good sized vinyl collection, you know, maybe 200 or so albums. It wasn't a huge collection though. And then in about 98, I started DJing in Japan at the bass clubs. And that was DJing using CDs. I started off just a regular playing music DJ, you know. Fading from one song to the next is in depth as it got. And then when the CDJs came out, which were the first CD turntables, I don't remember if they were the first, but they were one of the first sets of CD turntables that came out. I started actually mixing in stuff in the clubs, and I did that for quite a while. And my CD collection, I never stopped buying. Every payday, I would buy more CDs. It used to drive my wife nuts. But I got to about 3,500, maybe 4,000 CDs. And that ended in about 2007. We hit really hard times. There was issues with my wife's immigration paperwork. It got lost when we moved to the U.S. from Japan. It was just a nightmare where she couldn't work for 2 years because she had no paperwork. She was here legally, but she couldn't do anything. She couldn't get a driver's license, all because her paperwork got lost. It took forever to get that resolved. And during that time, we had to file for bankruptcy. I ended up selling most of my CDs. Luckily, we had a computer, so you know most of that stuff I uploaded before I sold it. I sold it all to Zia. So some of you guys in Phoenix and Tucson may be playing some of my old music right now. At the time, Zia paid really well for CDs, so I sold most of that stuff, you know, just to help us get by. And then for years, I was just listening to music over my iPod, which I still have. Oh, somewhere I've got the 160 gig iPod, and it's most of the way full, mostly from my old CD collection, you know. And then I was getting stuff online, and a lot of stuff I was just randomly downloading. I wasn't paying for it, which is a trend I've gotten away from. I don't download anything anymore that I don't pay for. I've actually gone through and deleted everything that I didn't rip from CD. And then about 2.5 years ago, I got back into vinyl. And what kind of got me back into vinyl was I had a couple records. About 5 years ago, I was on eBay and ordered Make Them Die Slowly from White Zombie. I ordered the CD and got the record, and it just kind of sat there for years. And finally, about 3 years ago, I was at my dad's house. I was like, "Hey, let me get that old turntable, my old turntable, which is the Technics that I used to use." So he gave me that, and then once I had the turntable, I just started buying records again, and it may have been something subliminal. Every time record store day came around, I was listening to the stuff online that was coming out and downloading some of the stuff that I thought was cool. But I had never considered collecting vinyl again or buying vinyl again, and then after listening to that, it just kind of reignited the bug. And from there I went to a couple thrift stores and bought some stuff, and from there it's just spiraled from there. And now I'm up to, I don't know, I've probably got about 1,500 LPs at this point. So I don't see it changing in the next 5 years. I've consistently collected since about '91. I've been listening my whole life. I've been buying CDs and records and cassettes since the early '80s, when I was old enough to, or when I had my own money. So that aspect won't change. How will your collection change? It's hard to say. One thing that's never changed in my collection is the metal. A good half of my collection has always been hard rock and heavy metal. Members of the VC have swayed me in different directions. A couple members have gotten me on kind of a new wave of British heavy metal kick lately, so I've been buying a lot of that. Greeno showed some really cool 70s hard rock, and so I've been picking up some 70s hard rock lately as well. But so stuff like that may change here and there, but my collection won't change too much. I do go through and parse out some of the stuff that I don't listen to. Now that doesn't include hard rock or heavy metal. I keep all the hard rock. I haven't sold any of my hard rock or heavy metal, but some of the just classic rock stuff like that I picked up for good prices that I thought I would listen to that I just don't. I go through and get rid of some of that stuff or trade it off for other stuff. But as a whole, I don't see it changing too much. I mean, I'm not really interested in many of the new music styles, so I don't anticipate some new music style coming out that I'm going to go and spend a lot of money on. One change I have made is I listened to a lot of hip hop when I was younger, and I don't now. I think I'm down to maybe a dozen hip hop albums, and I'm thinking about trading about 6 of those. So let's see. So again, buying habits probably won't change too much. How will you see the VC in 5 years? We'll see. I'm enjoying the VC now. I've been on it for about 1.5 years. Will I still be on in 5 years? Who knows? Who knows if YouTube will be around in 5 years? VC may have evolved into something else at that point. You never know where it's going to go from here. It's a lot of fun right now. I really like interacting with most of the people. There's 4 or 5 guys that I interact with regularly offline. So some definite friendships have come out of that. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. And then the last part, he asked to see a picture of us when we first started collecting. Like I said, I lost most of the pictures in the fire. I have one picture from, it has to be 95-ish. 95, maybe 96, but I doubt it. I want to say it's 95. It's a member of me, or it's a photo of me and 2 members from my first band. My first band was Siege. This is a picture from the house I was living in at the time. That garage that burned down was actually our practice area, our practice room. Actually, I lost my drum set. I had a really nice Tama Rockstar 12-piece, 11-piece drum set that I lost in that fire. But as well as any pictures that we had. The only reason I have this picture is because one of the guy's wives ran across it somewhere. It's just a picture of us goofing around, But this is myself, Corey, the bass player, and Mike, the guitarist. And then in the background, I'll play some of the music that we were playing back then. It's actually, I left the band to join the Navy. Corey, the bassist, left shortly after, but they recorded a short demo with the drummer who replaced me, a guy named Talos, really good guy, who's still a friend. I'm still friends with all of these guys, actually. So this isn't me playing drums. But this is the band, and I would go on to be in a couple of other bands later on. But this one was my first band. You can hear it in the music. The music is we thought it was amazing back then. It sounds horrible when you listen to it now. It sounds like a bunch of young kids in their first band. But I'll still put a little clip in there. These were a couple of the songs that we played back then. But like I said, it's not me on there. But so this is me and two of the guys from Siege, along with a little clip. So leave your comments. Tell me what you think. Again, congrats on a year, Lee. It's been a lot of fun. Like I said, we've interacted and mailed stuff back and forth. It's been a great time. So here's to a couple more years. Take care.